It can sometimes be difficult to be a family person as well as a car person. Exotic cars are typically too impractical to have a family in. But today we're going to look at 5 incredibly exotic family cars that you can buy for an insane amount of money, while all depreciating pretty nicely right now and might be cheap one day in the future. Hit like if you want to see this video at a cheaper price range, subscribe as well if you're new. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. We're kicking off this video with arguably one of the most well-known names in the entire car world, let alone the practical exotic market, the most recent generation Audi RS6, picking up where the previous 3 generations left off as an absolute monster on the roads, despite it being a 5-door estate with 565 litres of luggage capacity, cylinder deactivation for better fuel economy, and 5 seats in the right spec too. Adjusted for inflation, new in 2020, these would have been around £109,000, but now you'll find them listed anywhere from around the 70k mark, with many available for around the 72 to 75k region from 2020. That means annual depreciation of around 9%, which actually isn't that bad, but looking at the prices of previous generation RS6s will tell you there's probably still quite a long way for them to go. For that kind of money, you'll be getting yourself a 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 engine, which makes 591 brake horsepower in base spec, taking it to 60 in 3.5 seconds, which really is an unnecessary amount of performance for a family estate, but for me that makes it even better. This generation has the properly up-to-date stylings you all see on the newest Audi R8, with the very angular and flared front end and very aggressive alloys too. It has been incredibly well received, which is good because the hype behind RS6s before their release is always pretty high in the car world, so the fact that owners and reviewers have in many cases named it the best car ever made should breed confidence. If you get on with the dynamic package, it will actually do 190 miles per hour, and what's even cooler for our American colleagues is that it's actually sold out there too, the first time since the first generation RS6. To commemorate this, there's a tribute edition only available in North America, which pays tribute to the RS2 Avant, which kicked off the world of fast Audi estates back in the 1990s. On reliability, as these are so new, generally they've been good so far, and most issues will have been resolved under warranty, which is always helpful. The previous generation was generally very reliable, with only 3 common problems: brakes warping, coolant hoses splitting, and buckled wheels, so I'm sure at some point we'll see something go wrong with the C8 too, as with all cars. Next up, we have another fast estate, a true RS6 competitor, the Mercedes E63 AMG. Like the RS6, it takes all the features of the family estate, often referred to as an old man car in the UK, and merges them with effectively a fast Grand Tourer to produce something absolutely berserk in terms of performance. That's thanks to its 4-litre twin turbocharged V8, which makes 603 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.4 seconds, so marginally more powerful and marginally quicker than the RS6, though it's worth noting you can get even more powerful version of the RS6 than the one I've mentioned in this video, they just cost more money. Speaking of money, the E63 in its most recent facelift starts at around £76,000 today, and you'll find them mostly sitting at around the 80k mark. Adjusted for inflation, these facelifted models were £118,000 new, meaning annual depreciation of just under 12% per year, or £42,000 in total since hitting the roads. In 2021, the E-Class received a major facelift, which completely changed the front end of the car, which of course also made change the look and feel of the existing E63 AMG, with the large front grille and the wider arches and track. Mercedes also announced the final edition E63 AMG slightly later on, in reference to it being the last time we would see the twin-turbo V8 in production, with just 999 examples being built, and the future of these cars being hybrid. For that reason, it's a particularly special looking and sounding E63, but as an estate, it does remain very practical, minus the running costs. I've sometimes been a bit critical of the interiors on Mercedes, not because of their looks, as they are absolutely stunning, but rather because of the material quality not being as good as older Mercs. However, these are actually pretty lush on the interior, and they come with a surprisingly luxurious set of features for a performance car, which for me makes a lot of sense given this really is the type of car you'd want to travel longer distances in. Reliability has generally been good on these too, according to owners on forums, and the main complaints I could find were around the cost of maintenance and inconsistent experiences with main dealers. In third on this list, we have a car that has been absolutely crumbling in price over the last few years. Even in 2023, I did a video where they were at least £20,000 more than you'll find them for today. It's the Aston Martin DBX, Aston's first foray into building an SUV, and though it's not really my cup of tea, there's no disputing that it's an absolute beast, with its 4-litre twin turbocharged V8 engine, which makes 542 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.9 seconds. Not bad at all for an SUV. That engine is actually the same one you'll find in multiple other exotics, like the new V8 Vantage, DB11, DB12, and most Mercedes 63 AMG versions of their models, like the CES, SL, etc. era. Yet considering the badge, it's crazy to think how much these have depreciated already in just 4 years, as they now start at around £95,000, with many available for around the 105k mark. As these were listed for around £191,000 new adjusted for inflation with no spec options, that means annual depreciation of around 12.5%, and the most total depreciation on this list, £96,000 off, or just over 50%. This was the first car made at the new Aston Martin facility in Wales, and it was designed to give the impression of it being more like a typical Aston Martin by pushing the wheelbase out as far as possible to give the illusion of it being lower and sleeker than it actually might be. To that end, it was built on its own dedicated platform, which is quite unusual for a lot of modern cars, but means that it can have very cool features like swan hinged doors, while also remaining pretty practical with 5 seats and 632 litres of storage space. As an SUV, it does remain luxury focused all in, with adaptive dampers and air springs, with the ability to also adjust the height for different terrain and applications. They have had 2 common issues in their short lifespan though, a lack of fuel pressure resulting from the fuel pump failing, and torque converter issues due to sensor issues. But in general, this will have all been resolved under warranty, so just worth mentioning. So I hope you guys are enjoying this video. If you're, then do hit the like button and subscribe as well if you're new, and let me know in the comments down below, if you want to see the same video again at a different price range, what price range would be useful for you? From one family SUV to another now, as we move on to the more recent Jaguar F-Pace SVR P550, which is effectively a facelift to the original F-Pace SVR. It's a very similar car all into the Range Rover Sport SVR P550, which should come as no surprise, given it's an easy way for JLR Group to get 2 offerings out of effectively the same package. But having been in both, there are some fundamental differences on the interior, so it's worth testing out both. And regardless, as I mentioned in my last video, insurance would play a huge role in which one to go for, as Range Rovers are suffering on insurance right now, which is also affecting the rest of the JLR Group cars, so much so that JLR are offering insurance directly to customers, even for second-hand cars, with a maximum price of £200 per month, which still seems a bit expensive for me, but it's better than a lot of people have been getting. Anyway, in terms of depreciation, these were £92,000 new adjusted for inflation 3 years ago, making this the cheapest car on the list, but now you'll find them starting at around the 54k mark, with many 2021 examples found at around the 56k mark. That means annual depreciation of just under 14% and total depreciation of 41.3%, or £38,000 total. So it's the cheapest car new, cheapest car used, and the one that has lost the least actual value, but still annually it's the second fastest depreciating. That depreciation gets you a 5-litre supercharged V8 engine, which makes 542 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.1 seconds, 0.2 seconds off of the DBX in terms of performance, which, considering it's less than half the price new, is not bad. It's also got a nice muscly exterior and more sporty focused interior than the Range Rover from my perspective, and it sounds amazing too, with the typical Jaguar focus on noise, especially on overrun. Some owners appear to have ended up with lemons, which is a bit of a shame, as in general these have been reliable. And when I say lemons, I don't actually mean like catastrophic failures, I mean sensor issues, infotainment issues, and similar gremlins that you just don't want in your first 3 years of owning a brand new car. Taking the top spot on this list is a car that has been spoken about a lot recently from a depreciation perspective. It's the Porsche Taycan Turbo S in either Sport Turismo or Cross Turismo spec, meaning it's either an estate or an estate with some plasticky bits attached to the wheel arches. It's a scarily fast estate though. The RS6 and E63 get completely blown out of the water by it, considering this EV puts out 750 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 2.7 seconds. That genuinely is absurd performance for a car that can seat 5 people and theoretically manage around 270 miles on a single charge. Unfortunately though, as mentioned, if you invested in a Cross Turismo 3 years ago new, adjusted for inflation, it would have cost you around £165,000, whereas today you'll find them listed anywhere from around the 90k mark, with many 2022 examples findable for under £100,000 still. That means annual depreciation of around 15%, £75,000 total, and an annual decrease of £25,000, the most on this list, which is pretty terrifying. Per month you're potentially losing more than £2,000. That is insane. The Cross Turismo does have a little more than just the black plastic trim though. It's slightly raised and has modes focused on off-roading, like a gravel drive mode. It'll also hold 446 litres of luggage in the boot and up to 1,212 litres with the rear seats down. This matches the Sport Turismo, which comparatively is lower but also has a rear-wheel drive option instead for the base model, which the Cross Turismo didn't get. Either way, both are great looking cars with lovely interiors and all the rest, but it is a shame that they've been depreciating so heavily, in part thanks to being EVs where people don't yet seem to be too sure on buying used, and in part thanks to the recent Porsche-wide correction in prices. The biggest problem that owners have had with these is down to battery life, with range dropping over time. This hasn't happened to everyone by any means, but I did find owners on forums discussing drops in battery life of up to 30%, which is never a good sign. Battery issues in general are what plague owners' forums, which probably hasn't helped the depreciation at all. And so there you have it, a bunch of family cars that are also pretty exotic. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. To see some more fast practical cars, click up here, subscribe as well down here. Huge thanks to you guys for watching, to the patrons for their support, and I will see you in the next one.